Lena's hands trembled slightly as she moved swiftly across the gleaming marble floors of the Grand Hotel's prestigious lobby. It was early morning. The quiet hum of a city just waking up filled the air, but in Lena's mind, a storm raged beneath her composed exterior. She kept her eyes cast downward, focusing on her task, trying to blend into the background, convinced that as a cleaner, she was meant to be invisible, a mere shadow in the grandeur surrounding her. The weight of unspoken expectations pressed against her chest. Work hard, stay quiet, never make waves. Suddenly, the sharp, panicked voice of a guest shattered the stillness. "Please, someone help. Does nobody here speak French?" Lena froze for a heartbeat, her breath caught in her throat. The guest's eyes were wide with desperation, scanning the room for help that didn't come. The hotel manager was nowhere in sight. The silence was suffocating. In that suspended moment, something inside Lena stirred, a mixture of instinct, courage, and the quiet pride she had carefully tucked away. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, her voice steady but soft as she answered flawlessly in French, "Job a day, madam." The sudden clarity of her words seemed to reverberate through the lobby, arresting the attention of everyone present. Heads turned, eyes widened in disbelief. A cleaner speaking 9 languages was something no one expected to see or hear. Lena's cheeks flushed with a mix of embarrassment and a deep, unfamiliar thrill. For the first time, she was not just the silent background, she had become the focal point. But with the gazes of strangers burning into her, a flicker of fear crept in. Had she overstepped? Was this moment of bravery a misstep that would cost her dearly? Before she could retreat into herself, the owner of the hotel emerged from the shadows, his eyes locking onto hers with a sharp intensity. "Come with me," he said quietly, his voice calm but commanding. Lena's heart pounded wildly as she followed, the polished floor echoing beneath their footsteps. This was no ordinary morning. It was the moment when everything she had silently carried inside, the languages learned in stolen moments, the sacrifices made for her family, the resilience built in the shadows, would be brought into the light. And with that light came both possibility and challenge, a door opening into a future that was as uncertain as it was extraordinary. The small, sterile office buzzed quietly under the harsh glow of fluorescent lights, a stark contrast to the grandeur of the hotel lobby where Lena usually moved unseen. The air felt heavy with unspoken questions as she sat across from Mr. Callahan, the hotel's owner, a man whose gaze was sharp, yet now softened by curiosity. His elbows rested on the polished desk, fingers intertwined, as if weighing not just her words, but the weight behind them. "How did you learn all these languages while working here?" His voice was steady but probing, the question more than a simple inquiry. It was an invitation to reveal the hidden chapters of her life. Lena's eyes flickered to the window, where the distant hum of city life drifted faintly inside. She swallowed the lump rising in her throat and began, her voice quiet but resolute. "I study in every free moment I can find between cleaning rooms after my brothers go to bed. It's the only way I've found to hold on to myself." The owner nodded slowly, absorbing the vulnerability in her words. "Your family?" She hesitated, then nodded again. "I'm raising 2 little brothers. Our parents passed away. I work nights so I can be home during the day helping with school and homework." The truth hung in the air, an invisible burden she had carried alone for years. Mr. Callahan's expression softened, the hardness in his eyes melting into something resembling empathy. "That's a lot to carry for someone so young." Lena's gaze dropped to her hands, clenched tightly in her lap. "I don't have a choice. But sometimes, I wonder if anyone here even sees me. Or if I'm just background noise." "You're not background noise to me anymore," he said quietly, his words a balm to the loneliness she had long endured. But others might see arise as a threat. The weight of his warning settled between them. Lena understood the invisible walls she faced, prejudice, skepticism, the quiet resistance to change that lived in the corridors of power. Yet in this moment something shifted. She was no longer invisible. Her story was out, and with it, the fragile seed of respect was planted. Word of Lena's talents and her meeting with Mr. Callahan spread quickly, like ripples across still water, stirring the stagnant currents beneath the hotel's polished surface. The staff room buzzed with hushed whispers and sideways glances, eyes filled with disbelief, envy, and a growing sense of unease. Some muttered bitterly, "She's just a housekeeper. Why now? What's changed?" Lena felt the shift in the atmosphere as keenly as a sudden chill. The friendly nods and smiles she once took for granted now carried an edge of suspicion or outright dismissal. She walked through the halls no longer as invisible as before, but not yet fully embraced. The weight of judgment settled heavily on her shoulders. Then came the confrontation, sharp and unyielding. The manager, a stern figure clad in crisp uniform, blocked her path one afternoon, arms crossed, eyes narrowing into slits. "This isn't about talent," he said coldly, voice low enough to sting. "It's about rules. Housekeepers don't speak to guests in anything but English. It disrupts order." Lena met his gaze steadily, a quiet fire igniting in her chest. "Maybe the order needs disrupting," she replied softly, the words a challenge wrapped in calm resolve. The manager's lips tightened, but before he could reply, the distant footsteps of Mr. Callahan echoed in the corridor. The owner appeared then, raising a hand to silence the rising tension. "Enough," he said firmly. "I want to know more about you. This ends now." The manager's scowl deepened, but he stepped back, silenced for now. Lena's heart pounded fiercely, not with fear, but with the exhilaration of standing her ground. The battle lines were drawn, not just for her, but for what she represented, the quiet strength of those too often overlooked, ready to claim their place with dignity and pride. The promotion came quietly but powerfully, a shift as subtle as dawn's first light filtering through heavy curtains. Lena was introduced not as a housekeeper, but as the hotel's new international guest liaison, a role that felt like stepping into a new skin, unfamiliar yet undeniably hers. The boardroom buzzed with a mixture of surprise, respect, and the faintest undercurrent of resentment. Eyes that once barely noticed her now measured her with a complex blend of curiosity and wariness. The days that followed were a whirlwind of new faces, cultural protocols, and language barriers that Lena navigated with the grace born from years of silent perseverance. Her fluency in 9 languages was no longer a hidden talent, but a vital asset, opening doors previously locked to her. Yet beneath this rising tide of recognition, the currents of hostility churned unseen. Sabotage crept quietly into her world. Meetings she was once invited to were now held without her. Important documents were mysteriously altered. Whispers and rumors swirled in the background like dark clouds gathering before a storm. Lena sensed the eyes watching her, waiting for a misstep, hoping to see her falter. One afternoon, Garrett Price, a senior executive with a sharp smile that never reached his eyes, cornered her with a forged memo, an accusation thinly veiled beneath bureaucratic language. "You'd better fix this before it costs you your job," he warned, the menace lurking beneath his polite tone unmistakable. But Lena, steady and unshaken, met his challenge calmly. She held out corrected documents, precise and clear, a silent declaration that she would not be undermined. The room fell into a heavy silence, the power play exposed and neutralized. Behind her, Mr. Callahan's presence was a quiet shield. "Thank you, Lena. This won't be overlooked," he said, his voice low but resolute. The battles ahead were far from over, but with newfound allies and her own unwavering determination, Lena was ready to face the storm. The months that followed were a quiet battlefield where resilience became Lena's armor. The poison of sabotage lingered in shadowed corners, false rumors whispered in hushed tones, attempts to isolate her from colleagues, and manipulated documents aimed to fracture her credibility. But beneath the weight of hostility, Lena's spirit refused to break. An investigation was quietly launched, spurred by evidence that surfaced like light piercing through dark waters. Garrett's web of deceit was unraveling, forged memos, backdoor manipulations, subtle traps set to topple her career. When confronted with irrefutable proof, the senior executive's facade crumbled, and dismissal was swift and inevitable. The hotel's atmosphere shifted imperceptibly, but undeniably. The murmurs of doubt gave way to nods of acknowledgement. Where once she was invisible, now colleagues sought her out, valuing her voice, expertise, and the quiet strength that had carried her through the storm. The weight of her journey was no longer hers alone. It had become a beacon for those who once stood unseen. In quiet moments, Lena found solace not in grand proclamations, but in the subtle changes, the respectful glances, the thoughtful gestures, the growing trust. Mr. Callahan's words echoed in her mind, a reminder and a promise. You belong here. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Victory, Lena realized, was not just about overcoming injustice. It was about reclaiming her place with dignity and grace. It was about the courage to stand tall amid adversity and inspire others to do the same. In the quiet aftermath of the storm, Lena stood beneath the Grand Hotel's soaring ceilings, feeling a profound shift within herself. The battles she had fought, both visible and unseen, had carved a new resilience deep into her soul. This was no longer simply about a job or a title. It was about the reclamation of her own voice and identity, forged in the crucible of struggle and perseverance. She often thought back to the long nights hunched over textbooks, the exhaustion pressing down as the city slept around her. Those moments had been her sanctuary, a secret world where knowledge became both shield and sword. Now, standing tall in the bright lobby, she understood that true strength was not born from silence or invisibility, but from the courage to be seen, unapologetically and without compromise. Her younger brother's faces often surfaced in her thoughts, two lives shaped by resilience and hope, depending on her example. Lena knew her journey was bigger than herself. It was a bridge for them, a testament to the power of determination, integrity, and quiet dignity in the face of overwhelming odds. The hotel's halls, once filled with whispers and doubt, now echoed with respect and recognition. Small gestures, subtle nods, and genuine smiles were the new language of acknowledgement. Lena had become a symbol of change, not through loud declarations, but through the steadfast presence of her strength and grace. As sunlight streamed through the grand windows, illuminating dust motes dancing like tiny celebrations, Lena's fingertips traced the marble railing, solid, enduring, a reminder that foundations built on truth and grit withstand the tests of time. This was her new reality, imperfect, challenging, but undeniably hers. A world where barriers could be broken, voices once ignored could now shape conversations, and courage quietly fueled every step forward. In this new chapter, Lena embraced the depth of her growth and the power of her inner strength, knowing that the greatest victories often come not from external accolades, but from the unyielding spirit that refuses to be diminished.